it's funny, we'll get into it a little bit later, but I collect records, and I have like a spreadsheet that I keep of all the records I
You're
have
real into
because
it.
I'm a nerd, man.
I'll have to send you some goodies.
I'll defend that to the end of my days. But it's funny. I guess I didn't really realize it until so I usually keep my spreadsheet by artist, right? But I
Mm.
put label in there and all that fun stuff. So the other day I was just like, oh, let me just rearrange it by label and see what the enormity of what I have is, and it's actually pure noise. And it was kind of like interesting to see. Like, I
Yeah.
guess I didn't realize it, but you guys have so many bands on the label that I love. So kudos to that. So I kind of want to dive into some pure noise stuff, just in terms of really the responsibilities and some of the things that you have there when it comes to vinyl releases. So I guess maybe short synopsis, because I'm sure there's a ton that you do, but regarding vinyl, like are you conceptualizing the variants? Are you working on album artwork? Are you working on like mastering these? Like what exactly are you focusing on in that space?
Yeah. Well, I don't do anything to do with like the mixing or the mastering or anything like that. That's,
Okay.
to people well above my pay grade. But basically, once we get all the like completed elements of an album, the masters, and then the
Mm-hmm.
album artwork, um, I I come up with all the variants. We kind of decide how many variants we want to do. You know, we reach out to different retailers who want to take in different exclusives. We've been doing a lot with Newbury recently,
Yeah, for sure.
Revolver, Rock Sound, Rev HQ, and then occasionally on way bigger titles like the new Census Fail album, like Urban Outfitters has a variant.
Wow.
So yeah, once we kind of have all those, and I'll start coming up with just however many variants my brain can think of based on kind of what the album art looks like. I don't, since you have a lot of our records, I'm sure you can tell that at least with the first pressing, a lot of them I try and keep real similar to the album artwork. I like to match
Mm-hmm.
it as much as possible.
Yeah.
Um, Occasionally, and 8 out of 10 times, we send it to the band and they're cool with it. Occasionally a band will have a specific variant they want or have a little bit more input. Um, a lot of them tend to kind of trust my opinion on that, which, I appreciate. But, we're open to anything. I mean, there's so many different color combinations and variants, and
Mm-hmm.
there's just so much you can do with vinyl right now.
Yeah.
Um, and then, it only it only keeps getting crazier. Different things pop up. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, once we have all the variants put together, I take, occasionally, sometimes we'll just get an album cover, and that'll be the only art we get. So I'll have to like build out the rest of the album packaging. That's not many times, but there's some stuff. Trying to think something recently we did where I had to do that. Um, but anyway, yeah. So then I'll get all the print files together. I'll communicate with the pressing company and get stuff ordered, and then um, I set up all the like pre-order kind of stuff with our various web stores that we have. We have 4 different web stores across the world, um, and then but as a team, everyone kind of comes up with whatever the pre-order spread is going to be, um, and then bands always have their own input and stuff like that too, and um, bands bands always get final approval of what we end up putting out. But
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of just the gist of that process. I mean, there
Yeah.
is so much more involved, but
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm sure there is, but that's cool. I definitely want to get into like the kind of conceptualization of the variants and stuff in just a moment. But
sure.
one question that does kind of sort of pique my interest here is you were talking about all of the different kind of like brick and mortar or online places that you do exclusive variants with. Now, Is that something, even if it's not something that like you have a hand in negotiating? I'm not sure if you really have like some insight on how that works, but just as a point of curiosity, like, so, let's say, 2023, the Story So Far puts out a new record, and we know they're enormous, and a company like Urban Outfitters, want their own variant. Like, how do those conversations typically go? And I mean, like, you don't have to get too much into like the financial side of it, of course, but like, how does that work? Is there like some sort of exchange there, or like, is it like, if we do a variant for you, you have to buy all of the copies like, kind of, how does that work?
Well, I mean, with every retailer, it's kind of the same process.
Okay.
Some of them, it's a little more, like Newbury, we've done so many with them that, we have a direct contact with them, and we just tell them like, hey, we got this new album that we're starting to work on. Like, would you be interested in an exclusive? This is how many units, and they'll say yes or no. It's
Okay.
pretty much as simple as that. And sometimes they'll be like, we'll take a little less, like we'll do a little less, and then we go, all right, we can work with that. We try and make it so our web store variant is kind of like usually the most limited at any time. So that kind of like will define like the number that we can't go below. We're
Okay.
like, we want to keep this one the most exclusive, and then but yeah, and then the bigger ones like Urban Outfitters, or like we haven't done a Target exclusive vinyl yet, but they've taken in CDs for like The Story So Far, State Champs, Knock Loose, stuff like that. All of that generally filters through our distributor. We're distributed by The Orchard, and then they'll kind of reach out to people like some of those bigger accounts, and it's pretty much the same process. We just tell them like, this is what the minimum will be, and they'll come back and be like, they'll take this many, and then from there it's just it's literally they're just buying the records wholesale. It's not like any crazy deals or anything like that. It's just like, we'll print them, and these are your records you have access to, and you buy them as you need them.
Now you mentioned Newbury Comics. There's probably only a handful of those independent record stores left in the country. So like,
yeah, it's a dwindling number for sure.
Yeah, and it's sad to see, and then you mentioned like Targets and Urban Outfitters, and it's like, like yes, that's enormous because they're everywhere, but at the same time, like those kinds of places are what's also like hurting those independent record stores. And
that's that's just kind of the way of the world. It's unfortunate that it is that way. I mean, I grew up in record stores. Me and my dad, that was our Sunday thing. We would go to shout out Scooters Records in Hermosa Beach. That was our like main place to go, and such a cool, just like tiny little record store. It honestly wasn't much bigger than this room. And the guy who ran it, Tim, he knew all of his customers. Like there would be so many times I would just walk in, and he'd be like, "What are you looking for?" I'm like, "I don't know." And he's like, "I got this, and there was so many albums I discovered just because Tim was like, "Yo, you'll like this." Like that's how I discovered like the first Against Me record, or like Lifetime, or just a lot of stuff like that. So that's just like, it sucks that a lot of that stuff is like gone, and that's just the world. Like more people are shopping on Amazon, and they want the convenience. They don't want to go to like the little record stores. Thankfully, I live in Nashville now, so thankfully we got a couple cool little record stores that are still going, like Grimey's. They're super cool. Like the last Knock Loose album that came out, not this EP, but the full length. Knock Loose actually did an in-store set in there, which was bonkers. Like, that they could only fit like 30 or 40 people or something, but it was crazy. Just like, so it's cool. There's generally like a good regional kind of store, like at least one in every major city, but yeah, that number used to be a lot bigger.
Yeah. I like, I guess this is kind of like weird to say, but it's almost like so now that music is so easily accessible, right? So now that, you can pay $9.99 a month and have like a Spotify premium or Apple Music account, it's almost counterintuitive to think that like vinyl is still so enormous, right? Like, because like you'd really think like in that line of thinking, like, yeah, no one's going to buy any physical releases. It's going to be like CDs where like, people just are going to stream everything and that's the end of it. But, you look at like Adele, for instance, right? Like this, the linchpin for why every single, pressing plant is 9 months behind. But I mean, she did what? Something like absurd, 500,000 copies, right? Of like her record on vinyl. And like,
and there was even, I think, who was it? Was it Lil Wayne or some hip hop artist did like a crazy amount of 7 inches just recently too.
And the crazy thing about it, right, is like, 500,000 is enormous. It's completely enormous, but like Adele is selling those records. Like,
I mean, we'll see a lot of them on the shelves for a long time. But,
for sure. Yeah. But I mean,
she does the numbers. So, I mean, it's not like a crazy amount, but there's definitely some padding on there.
Oh, yeah, 100%. But it's just like, just to think that like, an enormous pop artist like that is like, like vinyl is a market that we need to corner, where like, and talking about the Drive-Thru days, and Mikey can attest to this specifically. I mean, there was a time probably like maybe 2006, 2007, maybe 2008, where like nobody gave a shit about records. And like
Drive-Thru times for sure.
Drive-Thru had pressed records, right? Like that, like now, like if you have one of those in your arsenal, like you could probably sell them for like $400 or $500, but like they were sitting in Hot Topics in like the clearance bin for like $6. Like you could just pick up one of those newfound picture discs and like,
I got the Movie Life picture disc, right? The clear one with the dice in it.
Yeah. Like Hot Topic would be like, hey man, we'll just like, if you want to take that, like, as long as you're buying like at least a pin or something, like just take it. And you're like, oh, okay. Not knowing that like in 5 years from then, the industry would just flip on itself and become this enormous thing. And I think it's great. I collect records mostly because I love having larger versions of album art. I love the whole idea of exclusive titles, exclusive variants. I love the fidelity, and just, as like a 30-something-year-old person, like I just like love to throw on a record on a Saturday and just sit down and listen. It just there's something about it, right? Sure. And I think you'd agree with that, right? Like there's just like something intangible about it that people really love.
Yeah, it's funny because I think a lot of people, the real people, like not the real people, but the people who are in it real deep, they'll try and be like, oh, nothing sounds better than vinyl, and it's like, well, calm down. I mean, things do sound better than vinyl. I mean, I love vinyl, and I think it is a unique sound to a record. It can bring a different feeling to a record. Like you hear it for the first time on Spotify, and you just kind of zone out. You don't pay attention, but then you hear it on vinyl, and you kind of just, it's a little bit warmer. You can kind of I don't know. I always like the pops and the cracks, and just the imperfections, basically, because it's a physical product. Not every copy is going to be 100% perfect. So, and then also, on my end of things, I, something that also looks cool on your turntable, I mean, there's nothing wrong with a classic black record, if that's all somebody has, that's what I'll buy. I mean, my favorite band in the world is Lucero. I don't know if you're familiar with them at all.
For sure, yeah.
But they press all their records, but oftentimes it's like, it's just on black vinyl. It's like, all right, well, I guess that's what I'm buying.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I mean, the fact that
I want to step in real quick about that because when I was in the vinyl game, like the 180 gram black vinyl typically sounded the best. Like
it does for sure.
Yeah. So even though it wasn't like the flashiest, that is still
the weight
I usually went for.
The weight of it kind of prevents any warping, or not prevents it, but keeps it to a minimum. Like no record's going to be 100% flat after it's like been shipped from like the Czech Republic across to the US and then sits in a warehouse and then gets shipped to customer via UPS and thrown out of a truck. And, you know, like, it's just like, not every record's going to be perfect, but a 180 gram black vinyl is going to do it because, you know, colored vinyl brings its own other imperfections to it, you know, just the process of making those colors and stuff. And, you know, occasionally you'll see it's gotten better, but I remember some, especially before I really got involved with Pure Noise, you know, there were some records you'd take out and there's like a dust on it almost. And you're like, what is this? And it's just, that's part of like the production process. And, you know, they've eliminated that a lot, but it still does happen. So,
yeah, it's, I should have just brought it in here to show you. I ordered a record from Best Buy because like I had a like a
I bought records from them too.
Yeah, except this time didn't go so well for me. It was I had like a reward certificate, so like and they just did I guess like a white repress of Saves the Day's Ups and Downs. So I was like, oh, you know, let me grab it. Yeah. And of course it got to me like pretty much bent in half. Like
I've seen some of those nightmare stories on like Vinyl Collective, and I'm just like, how does that even happen? I've seen like mailers come just like,
oh that. Yeah, I'm literally like and my wife like it got delivered to the door, and my wife's like, hey, when you get home from work, make sure you take a look at this because it looks like it's bent in half. And I shook it and I can hear pieces, and I was like, excellent. But luckily, I mean, you know, a lot of these, you know, online retailers and stuff, they're kind of good with that stuff. They're like, either take a picture or like, just return it and we'll give you your money back. Like, you know, it's kind of a nightmare there, but talking about
so many customers that they don't want to like deal with the hassle, like, send it back, we got to see it and prove it, and they're just like, whatever, here, we'll send out a new one.
Well, so I've bought from Pure Noise enough to know that Pure Noise, you guys use root, right, for like your protection there. I think it's like extra $1.
It's just kind of like a built-in thing in Shopify. Like, I don't even know if you can turn it off in Shopify, to be honest. But
I think you can, but I usually just keep it on just.
Well, I mean, in the back end, like from a retailer standpoint. But yeah, it seems like enough people use it. I don't think I've ever placed an order and kept it on, but you've used it, and it's like
it's
taking care of damages.
It's one of those peace of mind sort of deals, and it's literally like an extra $1, so it doesn't, you know, if I'm buying 2 or 3 records from you guys, like I'm not gonna, you know,
I definitely had people complain about it, like, I turned it off and then it did turn back on.
Yeah, it's like if you're really go away, it's like you're really gonna freak out about like 98 cents, like, you know, chill out. But
what's funny is we don't run our web store, you know, like Merch Now runs our web store, so like, you know, people will come to me all the time, and I'm just like, well, I'll point you in the right direction, but I'm not actually like in there shipping out your order. Sorry to disappoint you.
And then you were talking about 180 gram records, Mikey. I just had to bring up, I just bought a couple of Murder by Death records, and they're doing them like 200 gram.
Wow.
Like, which like,
how much are they charging for that?
It wasn't too bad. I think I got, I don't know if you're a Murder by Death fan, but I got in Boca al Lupo and I forget the one after that. But I think I want to say like maybe $24, $25.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah, single LP. I mean, you know, not crazy. So it definitely works, but it's super cool. So conceptualizing these variants. So I know that you said, you know, you're typically trying to work within the color schemes of the album art and all that kind of stuff, which I think is super cool. But like, so what I'm going to do here is I have my little vinyl spreadsheet up, and I'm just going to call out some variants, and like if you could just kind of tell me a little bit about them, just because of how cool they are. So the first one I want to hit on, which I think is such a cool thing, and I'd love to know how this really works. But Brain Pain, you have the glow in the dark variants on that, and also the new Drug Church variant that I'm getting is going to be glow in the dark as well. So
nice.
How the hell do you make a glow in the dark record?
Like, how do we make it, or how do we decide we want to do one? Or
I guess like really for this question, like how does it work? Like how like how does it work?
Like how is it pressed?
Yeah, exactly.
So they're glow in the darks are tricky because they're using they're basically putting a powder. They're mixing a powder in with the wax or
Okay.
the vinyl or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And it only works on. It has to like. I actually like learned all of this recently because we were trying to do some like crazy glow in the darks, and the pressing plant was like, "That's not going to work. It doesn't work like that."
Mm-hmm.
So it has to react with a color or like it. It has to basically react with the wax a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you kind of only see it on opaque stuff. It won't work. It has to be a transparent
Yeah.
vinyl.
Mm-hmm.
And then the vinyl itself also has to be light enough for the glow to actually work. So that's why you see it on mainly a clear or a milky clear.
Got it.
We typically like to go with the milky clear instead of a pure clear. No real rhyme or reason there. Just that's our preference usually.
Cool.
I feel like the green kind of glows a little bit better with it. And that's another thing too is because it actually has a little bit of color in it as opposed to the clear is just a pure clear.
Mm-hmm.
So the glow isn't going to be as bright when it happens.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean that's just basically how that works. There are a couple they've been out of it for a while, so I think it's like because of COVID, just certain manufacturing processes they haven't been able to get them. But you always see like a green glow in the dark basically, but there's also a red one and a blue one that you can do.
Oh wow.
But they've been out of them for a while. Like we wanted to do a red one with the new Knock Loose EP.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't have it. So
have it, yeah. No, I mean it really is super cool.
yeah.
And then one of the
it
other
doesn't
ones,
sound the greatest, but it looks super cool.
yeah. One of the other ones that I think you guys like absolutely knocked it out of the park with is the pressings that you did for the spill canvases Conduit. I mean the one I have the double mint with the purple and the yellow twist.
The twist, yeah.
It's so cool looking. But so I guess the question I have there is like this is not as much of a pressing question as much as like a conception question. But so when you go into talking about these variants, like so obviously looking at the cover of Conduit, you're hitting the purple, the yellow, the green, which is awesome. But like, how do you decide like, oh, we want to do like a butterfly or a pinwheel or a twist? Like does that feed off of like what you see in the album art itself, or are you just like, oh,
sometimes.
Like this is a cool thing we can kind of do? So how does that conceptualization happen?
I mean, sometimes it does. We got kind of our bread and butter variants. Like you'll almost always see an A side, B side, and then a splatter of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some albums that just kind of don't lend to visually harsher variants. I don't know how to explain it. Like sometimes I'll just look at an album cover or like listen to the album and I'm like, it just doesn't make sense to me to do like a splatter here. Like, because there is a little bit of that where it's like trying to fit just like the general mood of the whole album. In the case of the Spill Canvas one, that was kind of like the cover art was super cool and like tons of colors to play with, like we get a lot of these like, hardcore bands or whatever, like it's just like, this is black and white album art. And it's like, all right, well, I guess I'm doing mostly black and white and grays, but try and throw in a little bit of red for contrast or whatever. Occasionally we'll do different and just go off the board, but in the case of the Spill Canvas one, that was like, I'm looking at it right now. We did a lot of splatters for that. I don't even really know. I mean, I like the twist variant a lot. And there was a while where it wasn't really advertised as a variant that you could order. So for a while, we were kind of like the only ones doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like that. And then, like I said, the A side, B side, we'll almost always try and do one of those. And then, another big one that we've kind of, you see more and more in our newer albums is like a color in a color with a splatter. I just like the way those look. So yeah, I mean the variants themselves, I mean, on smaller records where we're doing like 3 to 5 variants or something, it's a little easier to like be like, all right, these are our cool ones that we like to always do. These are what we know sell. Like that's another factor in it, like some stuff just people are like, that's whatever, it's fine. It's a half and half, or it's not that visually striking. Because I mean, there is an element of like, how cool is this going to look on social media? Are people going to show this off? Like there is an element of that, obviously.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, but when we start getting into like bigger albums, like the new Knock Loose, or like a Story So Far album, or State Champs album, where we're doing like, or Census Fail, we're doing 10 to 13 variants. You're just like, you get to a point where you're just like, all right, well, we'll do one of that one, and one of that one, and one of that one, just because it's like we have to do something.
Yeah.
So then it's just working with the colors in your palette, kinda, and sometimes going off the board, but keeping it fairly contrasting. So
awesome.
Now, hold on, before we shift into the hockey talk, and this is kind of related. There's a few known hockey fans who are on Pure Noise Records that we've had on this show.
Yep.
Have any bands come to you and been like, yo, I want to do a Dallas Stars color variant for the State Champs record, or I want to do a Toronto Maple Leafs variant for the New Barons record, or like any of that ever come into the conversation? And like, I'm sure
not specifically, but like there are people that like, because I'm such a big hockey fan, and like so is Jake and stuff, and obviously I know what people in our bands like which teams. So there have been times where I'm like, yo, let's do this. Like, the Story So Far, obviously Kellen is a big Sharks fan. Blue Sharks. But yeah, there was like on the Out of It 7-inch, I think it was, one of the color schemes I wanted to do that. It was I think it was a teal and orange, and it was like, I want to do that. Like these are kind of similar to the Sharks colors, and I don't know, I can't remember if that one actually happened or not, but there have been times where I've thrown it out there, like, I know you guys are like, or someone is a fan of this team, so like Seaway bearings, we haven't done specifically Maple Leafs colors. Trying to think. State Champs, Derek hasn't specifically said anything about like Dallas Stars covers, but I do want to do like a neon green and black, like based off of that their like retro reverse they had.
Hell yeah!
Oh yeah, hell yeah!
I mean, like in my head with this, like this is such a golden opportunity to like create like a series of like 7 inches that are just all like hockey variant themed, and just make like, I don't know, like 700 of each, and just be like, once they're gone, they're gone. And then like just the entire Pure Noise roster just has like, oh, check out like, Seaway's Leafs, fucking
sounds like a
thing,
nightmare.
or like, yeah. Well, I mean, you would know way better than me. Yeah, I know.